Every person you meet is carrying a wound you can't see. It hides behind their posture, slips through their tone, leaks in the words they choose, and the ones they avoid. Most people don't notice it. They react to what someone says, not to why they're saying it. But Machiavelli understood something most people never will. Power isn't built on charm or brute force. It's built on understanding pain. Because if you can read where someone bleeds, you can predict where they'll move next. Dark empathy, that's what this is. The ability to sense emotion, not to heal it, but to map it. You're not here to comfort them. You're here to decode them. When you look at someone through this lens, you stop seeing random behavior. You start seeing patterns, predictable, exploitable, deeply human patterns. Every insult, every overreaction, every silence is an unguarded signal of pain. Watch closely. When someone gets defensive over something small, they're not defending the argument. They're defending an old wound that never closed. Someone who brags endlessly about their success, that's not confidence. It's insecurity dressed as armor. Someone who avoids conflict at all costs, they've probably lived through chaos before, and now they crave control disguised as peace. This is where most people stop. They label someone toxic, arrogant, or cowardly. But a Machiavellian mind doesn't label. It listens. It studies. It predicts. Because pain is predictable. It's like gravity. It pulls people back into the same emotional loops. The man betrayed once will test loyalty in every relationship. The woman humiliated once will chase validation in every interaction. People repeat what hurt them because the wound wants resolution, but it never gets it unless someone smarter, someone like you, learns how to read it. When you study people this way, you begin to see how emotions become strategies. You'll see that the angry man uses rage to control attention, because in his past, attention was the only thing that made him feel safe. You'll notice how the quiet observer stays invisible, because invisibility once kept them alive in rooms full of louder threats. None of this is random. Every personality trait you see is a scar in disguise. And this is where dark empathy separates itself from ordinary empathy. Ordinary empathy stops at, "I understand your pain." Dark empathy goes further. It asks, "How can this pain be useful to me?" Not out of cruelty, but clarity. If you're dealing with someone who's motivated by fear, you can predict they'll avoid confrontation. If someone's driven by pride, you can control them through recognition. If someone's haunted by betrayal, you can bind them with loyalty. Understanding this isn't manipulation, it's awareness. But awareness used strategically becomes power. Machiavelli knew this instinctively. When he spoke of appearing virtuous while secretly calculating, he wasn't endorsing deceit, he was describing emotional camouflage. To lead or survive in power, you must mirror emotions you don't feel and mute the ones you do. That's emotional warfare. It's not about pretending to care. It's about making people believe their pain is seen, because the moment they feel understood, they surrender their defenses. This is how rulers stayed alive in courts of snakes. They didn't fight emotions with logic. They redirected them. They offered sympathy not as kindness, but as control. When someone feels that you see them, truly see them, they stop watching you. That's when you act. But dark empathy isn't just for palaces and politics. It's for everyday life. In your workplace, when someone sabotages your idea, don't retaliate. Observe. Ask yourself, what kind of pain would make someone do this? Jealousy? Insecurity? Fear of being forgotten? Find it, and you'll know exactly how to disarm them. Maybe you feed their ego a little. Maybe you let them take credit once. They relax. They trust you. And that's when their moves become predictable. The emotionally reactive person will always act first. The emotionally aware person always wins last. You start to realize that your calmness isn't passivity, it's strategy. It's not that you don't feel emotions, you just refuse to let them leak into your decision-making. That's Machiavellian discipline, mastering your inner world so you can read everyone else's. To practice this, you must train your perception. Stop listening for words. Start listening for tone, pacing, and pauses. The truth hides between syllables. When someone hesitates before agreeing, they're not being polite, they're calculating. When they speak too quickly, they're hiding uncertainty behind speed. When their face stays still, but their eyes flinch for a millisecond, that's the emotion they don't want you to see. Every lie wears a micro-expression. Every truth hides in rhythm. People's eyes betray what their mouths conceal. You can feel it. A flicker of discomfort. A flash of fear when you touch a sensitive subject. That's your map. When you can trace someone's emotional triggers, you can predict their reactions before they happen. They'll think you're psychic, but you're just observant. The secret to dark empathy isn't judgment, it's curiosity. You have to genuinely want to understand how people's pain shapes them, not out of pity, but precision. When someone raises their voice, ask yourself, what pain are they protecting? When someone shuts down emotionally, ask, what memory is being reopened right now? Every emotion is a clue, every reaction a confession. The more you listen, the louder their inner world becomes. You'll notice something else. Pain always seeks expression. If it can't express itself through words, it will through behavior. Someone who avoids deep conversation might constantly stay busy, not because they love work, but because silence makes them face themselves. Someone who keeps changing friend groups isn't adventurous. They're allergic to intimacy. Pain pushes them before they can be seen too deeply. Recognize this, and you'll never take things personally again. Because when you understand the wound, you stop reacting to the weapon. You see the attacker's humanity, but you don't let it soften you. You stay grounded in awareness, detached, yet informed. You can forgive people without letting them close. That's the paradox of dark empathy. It allows you to connect and protect simultaneously. You can care about people's pain while never allowing it to control you. When you master this, conversations become chess matches. You'll anticipate the next move not by guessing, but by reading the board of emotions in front of you. The colleague who flatters too much, they're angling for favor. The friend who jokes about betrayal too often, they're terrified of it happening again. The lover who constantly tests your attention, they were once invisible to someone who mattered, and now they're desperate to ensure they never feel unseen again. Each of these people is playing out a script written by pain. You, however, are rewriting it in real time. You decide when to soothe, when to confront, and when to stay silent. That's how power moves, quietly, intentionally, unseen. And the beauty of this art is that the more you understand others, the less predictable you become. Because while they're still trapped in emotional loops, you've stepped outside of yours. You no longer chase validation or revenge. You read them like a book and close it when you're done. Machiavelli once implied that a ruler who understands human nature never needs to rely on chance, only observation. Dark empathy is that observation refined into instinct. It's the power to look into someone's suffering and see not just their weakness, but their direction. Because pain doesn't just reveal where people have been, it reveals where they'll go when they're threatened, humiliated, or seduced. And if you can predict that, you can control the entire game. That's what separates emotional amateurs from masters of power. One reacts, the other reads. One fights for control, the other already has it. When you begin to see the world through this lens, everything changes. You stop being surprised by people's behavior because you can sense the tension before it erupts. You can tell when someone's smile is just a mask stretched over fear, or when their anger is simply grief trying to protect itself. And once you start noticing these things, you can't unsee them. The world becomes quieter, slower, not because people have changed, but because you can finally read the code behind their actions. Here's the strange truth. Most people aren't malicious. They're just wounded, and wounds, when left unexamined, turn people into weapons without them realizing it. The man who humiliates others was humiliated once. The woman who manipulates attention was once invisible. People repeat the emotional strategies that once helped them survive, even if they destroy others in the process. Machiavelli would have called this the predictable machinery of human nature. He didn't despise people for it. He simply refused to be naive about it. If you want to become truly Machiavellian in your empathy, learn to separate intention from conditioning. Don't ask, "Why did they do this to me?" Ask, "What pain are they serving by doing this?" You'll realize most people aren't against you. They're simply for their own pain. Their choices orbit around their wounds. Once you understand this, their power over you dissolves instantly. Imagine you're dealing with someone who keeps pushing your boundaries. Maybe a boss, a partner, or a friend. You could get angry, or you could study them. Ask yourself, why do they need control so badly? Maybe they were powerless before. Maybe they were betrayed and swore never to let anyone dictate their fate again. Now they push everyone, not out of dominance, but desperation. Once you see this, you can stop playing defense. You start managing the wound instead of reacting to it. You give them small illusions of control, small doses of safety, while quietly moving the situation in your favor. That's dark empathy, steering emotion without igniting it. This approach doesn't make you cold, it makes you effective. Real control is emotional calibration, knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to mirror someone's pain, just enough for them to feel seen. You become a mirror that reflects people's pain back to them in a way that softens their guard. The more seen they feel, the less they suspect your strategy. The less they suspect, the more predictable they become. Most people think empathy is about connection. It is, but it's also about influence. When people feel understood, they unconsciously grant you authority over them. Think about the last time someone truly understood you, how safe you felt, how your mind opened, how your defenses lowered. That's what emotional authority feels like. The Machiavellian twist is using that authority not to comfort, but to guide, to direct outcomes quietly, without confrontation, without force. Machiavelli's genius was in understanding that human emotion is the most consistent force in politics, love, and war. Logic changes with evidence, but emotion clings to memory. People act from emotion long before they rationalize it. That means if you can predict emotion, you can predict action. A person in fear will always seek control. A person in guilt will always seek forgiveness. A person in shame will always seek validation, and they'll keep doing it again and again until someone with dark empathy interrupts the cycle. But here's the catch. To master this art, you must first master your own pain. You cannot read what you're blinded by. If you've never faced your insecurity, you'll misread everyone else's as arrogance. If you've never confronted your loneliness, you'll see attachment as love. Your own emotional wounds distort your perception like cracks in a mirror. That's why the first rule of dark empathy is self-awareness. Clean your lens before you study anyone else's. Once you begin to do this, you'll start to notice emotional symmetry, how the same wounds mirror across people. You'll find that the manipulative coworker and the anxious friend are both seeking the same thing, safety, just through different strategies. The more you recognize these patterns, the more you realize that emotions are predictable algorithms, and you become the one who can read them. Now here's a deeper layer most people never reach: pain hierarchy. Not all wounds are equal. Some pain rules over others. A person may crave power, but beneath that is fear. They may seek love, but beneath that is shame. The top layer is the symptom. The bottom layer is the cause. If you can trace behavior down to its root emotion, you can predict everything that comes after. Machiavelli's version of this was understanding a ruler's core fear, the one thing that keeps them awake at night. Every command, every alliance, every betrayal was an attempt to silence that fear. You can find the same pattern in everyone you know. It might sound ruthless to analyze people this way, but it's actually the purest form of awareness. You stop overreacting. You stop over-trusting. You start navigating the emotional world like a chessboard. When someone lashes out, you don't counterattack. You read. When someone flatters you excessively, you don't get flattered. You decode. You turn their behavior into information. And in Machiavellian psychology, information is power. The higher form of dark empathy is emotional invisibility, being able to read others while staying unread yourself. You let people project their assumptions onto you, but you never reveal what drives you. They think you're compassionate, calm, harmless. That's fine. The less they understand your emotional triggers, the harder you are to manipulate. Power isn't about being feared anymore. It's about being unreadable. You understand everyone, while no one truly understands you. And here's the quiet paradox. When you reach this point, you won't even need to manipulate anymore, because people will voluntarily move in your direction. They'll sense your calmness, your understanding, your precision, and they'll trust it. They'll feel safe around you, not realizing that safety itself is your influence. You're not forcing them to follow. You're letting their pain guide them right into your plan. Dark empathy isn't evil. It's awareness stripped of sentimentality. It's what happens when empathy grows up, when it stops being emotional charity and becomes emotional intelligence. It's not about exploiting pain, but about recognizing that pain governs most human behavior, and the one who understands it holds quiet power over those who don't. And that's the final mastery Machiavelli hinted at: to see through emotion without losing your own humanity, to understand others' pain so deeply that it no longer surprises you, but still moves you enough to act wisely. Because when you can read pain without absorbing it, you stop being reactive and start being inevitable. That's dark empathy, not the art of feeling less, but the art of feeling accurately. It's the difference between sympathy and strategy, between being at the mercy of emotion and being the master of it. It's how you step out of the emotional chaos that controls others and become the one who shapes it. And from that moment on, every conversation, every conflict, every relationship becomes a map, and you're the only one who can read it.